A train has just arrived in the small village of Grubernubbin, bringing a new circus to the area. The circus owner, Fulbert, tries to impress the villagers with his attractions, such as the Elastic Man, the woman who can predict the future, and the brothers who walk on fire. But none of the inhabitants are interested in this, and they leave, and Fulbert complains of another failure as a circus owner. However, a little girl from the village named Arabella says that the residents are impressed by frightening things, such as the monsters that inhabit the Great K Castle. This fortress is located on the highest mountain, and there are rumors that it is the home of the most horrid creatures in the world. No one is brave enough to venture near the castle, but Fulbert is fascinated by the prospect of visiting, for the monsters could be what his circus is looking for. He doesn't know it, but the castle is home to the professor, a scientist who is obsessed with making monsters, and his assistant, the young Frankie. The boy was the first creation of the professor, and, like Frankenstein, was made from a variety of bodies joined together by electricity. The professor then turns on the machine that night to finish his latest creation, a hairy cyclops with 3 arms and a lizard's tail. When it's done, the creature is called Creation, and Frankie goes to the bathroom to clean it. The boy then leads him to the castle cinema, where a video is played about the rules the creatures have to follow. The professor's monsters used to run out of the mountain, and the villagers used to attack them with their spears and torches. For this reason, he keeps the monsters in the castle and teaches them to behave, not to try to escape, and especially not to attack the village. Following the recording, Frankie takes Creation to his room where he finds more of the professor's weird creations. Despite their frightening appearance, all the monsters are peaceful, and Frankie takes care of them as if they were children. After everyone is in bed, the boy tells a story putting the creatures to sleep, except for Creation, who wants to know how he was made. He even asks if he has a mother or father, but Frankie replies that, like him, his only family is the professor. Despite this, Frankie has always felt alone since he was created, as his father is always busy inventing new monsters. The only way the boy can interact with him is by helping him with experiments or by seeing him through a small crack in the wall next to his room. When it's time to sleep, Frankie snuffs out the candles and goes to bed, but the next morning he hears the doorbell ring. The monsters are frightened when the bell rings, because the professor has never had visitors before. When everyone starts getting nervous about the creatures being found by the residents of Grubernubbin, Frankie goes to the large castle gate to find out who is calling. He looks through the peephole of the door and sees Fulbert, the owner of the circus, who wants to see the castle owner. He has come with a business offer, but Frankie rejects it and tightens the locks on the gates. Even so, Fulbert doesn't give up and sends his employees to help them reach the top of the castle. Then, with several ladders at the same time, Fulbert is able to climb to the top of the mountain and calls for the castle owner, as they can make a very successful show together. When the man insists on talking to him, Frankie decides to talk to him with a potato sack over his face. He goes outside and sees Fulbert hanging from the edge of the castle and asks him to talk to him alone. Frankie attempts to say that the castle doesn't take visitors, but Fulbert doesn't understand him due to the bag on his head. Then the boy appears before him and Fulbert is impressed to see his face, and says that with that terrible look, he will be loved by all the spectators. The madman gets so excited that he ends up falling down the stairs, but survives the fall and promises to return to the castle soon. Although the man has left, Frankie is tempted to accept the offer, as he has never felt loved in his life, not even by his father. The boy then decides to take a look through the castle's telescope to see if the circus owner has returned to the village. He observes the place. However, he notices Arabella, who is looking back at him through binoculars on top of her house. Frankie is so fascinated with the girl that he sneaks out the window and drops directly to the ground. Luckily, being an undead creature, he doesn't feel pain, and soon after, Creation appears and calls him to take care of the other monsters. But the boy notes Fulbert's idea of leaving the castle and being loved by people as a new circus attraction. Frankie appears to take it in, but Creation doesn't want the boy to go and attempts to make the point that the professor loves him too. The two then go to the scientist's lab on the roof, where they witness the scientist make another monster. This time, he creates a hybrid caterpillar, and when the experiment is finished, Creation knocks Frankie off the roof so that he hangs directly in front of the professor. With a great deal of courage, he tells the old man about the opportunity to leave the castle and live in the circus. The old man, however, doesn't even listen to the boy, and extracts the brains from the jar to make another monster. When the teacher doesn't value him, Frankie is sad, but he does his job of cleaning the new monster and putting it in his room. Then the boy walks to the outside of the castle, and suddenly, some circus posters start to fly around the garden. Soon after, Frankie sees a huge balloon flying over the fortress, and Fulbert, along with his team, invites the boy to join the circus. Frankie takes it and attempts to get on the balloon with a rope, but Creation sees everything through the window window and ties the boy's legs so he can't get off. The two fight until Creation is able to bring Frankie back and the balloon starts to tip over. Despite this, Fulbert seizes Frankie's rope in his mouth, and as soon as he has regained control of the balloon, he pulls the boy back and carries him off from the castle. The following morning, the monsters are frightened when Frankie is gone. Creation desperately attempts to keep things in check and reads a story to the monsters to distract them, but he also forgets about Frankie and doesn't know what to do. Meanwhile, the boy is taken away by the circus members, who keep the new attraction a secret. When he arrives, Frankie feels insecure because he is afraid that people will be scared of him. But Fulbert says to him, "Do not be afraid, sit in the chair inside a cage." Next, the man calls one of the residents of Grubbernubbin to take a look at the new member of the circus. When the resident comes in, he screams in terror when he sees Frankie and flees in panic, and the circus owner is even more pleased. The monsters are worried about Frankie's absence at the grotesque castle, but Creation will bring him back. The creatures are not allowed to leave the fortress, but he is willing to do anything to get his friend back. Then the monsters decide to help him and put together a suit of protective armor and camouflage from bushes. Lastly, the gates are opened and Creation departs for the village, but the madman can't handle the armor and slides down a big hill. After crashing into several trees and rocks all along the ravine, Creation manages to hold on, but his armor is completely destroyed. Now, he will have to go to the village anyway, remaining hidden to avoid being seen. Fulbert then opens the new attraction to the townspeople, and they form a line to see the monster up close. As they all run away screaming when they see the undead boy, they draw more people to the circus, as expected. Arabella also decides to take a look, but her mother forbids her as she doesn't want her daughter near a monster from the grotesque castle. In a short time, Frankie becomes the main attraction of the circus, and after a full day of performances, Fulbert celebrates his success. If they continue like this, they'll soon recoup their investment in the circus and Frankie will be famous not only in Grubbernubbin, but throughout the country. Later, while everyone is sleeping, Creation goes searching for Frankie around the circus. He does not want to attract attention, but is noticed by Fulbert's little dog, who begins to bark and runs towards him. The creature manages to escape and must wait until the rest of the night until it is safe to walk down the path. Frankie is in his cell nearby when Arabella suddenly appears. Unlike the others, the girl isn't afraid of him and she brought a list with several questions about the grotesque castle and the monsters. But the circus owner soon shows up and tells the girl to get out as he must prepare Frankie for the next show. Although the previous night was a success, Fulbert knows that the audience always wants more, and so he decides to try out new acts. Later, the circus owner arranges a special show where Frankie is locked in a cage and chained up. All the spectators are left in suspense, but the boy manages to free himself and to perform a musical number about his story as an undead. Once again, the performance is a success and soon the audience starts asking for products with Frankie's face. This helps Fulbert to raise even more funds for the boy's image by selling plates, cups and shirts who start to gather fans throughout the village. With this success, Fulbert decides to pay the boy back by giving him his own trailer as a gift. Frankie is happy with the gesture, but the circus owner imposes a condition. He can't get anyone to his trailer. The boy agrees, but when Fulbert has left, Arabella comes out and calls the boy to go for a walk. Frankie sneaks out and the two start talking when suddenly Creation falls from the tree and almost crushes them both. Frankie asks what the monster is doing there and he says that the creatures miss him and that's why he came to take him back. In the middle of the conversation, the three hear the voice of the circus owner, so Frankie instructs Creation and Arabella to hide in his trailer. Fulbert goes to see what's going on inside, but when he opens the door, he only finds Frankie lying on the bed reading a book. The man believes everything is okay and walks away, but as soon as he closes the door, Creation comes out of hiding and is shocked at the number of humans around. The boy attempts to soothe him, but the monster is restless, and the trailer begins to roll down a large slope. Frankie does his best to break the trailer, but it flies off the mountain and crashes into the middle of a lake. Frankie and Arabella wake the next morning on the beach, but Creation wakes Frankie up and tells him that they must go back to the castle. But the boy doesn't want to, because he has come to the understanding that people can be good, and he wants to live with them. He then hugs Creation and says to him to go back to the castle before anyone sees him, even though he doesn't want to say goodbye to his friend. The boy departs with Arabella and Creation accepts Frankie's choice. Soon, the two are in Grubbernubbin and the residents are surrounding Frankie, taking photos and autographs. The boy is excited about all the attention, but Arabella takes him away and tells him that she has something important to show him. The two then go to her house, where Arabella shows them the drawings she made of the monsters from the grotesque castle. With her binoculars, she observed all the creatures from afar and drew them on paper, hoping to meet them someday. Frankie is pleased to see his friends again in the drawings, but he says it's time for them to take care of themselves. Moreover, The boy feels that he has found his place and heads to the circus, where Fulbert and his crew are heartened by Frankie's disappearance. If he doesn't show up, the circus will soon be over, but when things look bleak, Frankie shows up again to keep the show going. Fulbert is so excited about this, he decides to do an even bigger performance to get Frankie back in the show. So, that same night, the circus opens its doors and all the residents come to watch the new show. This time Fulbert has hired a builder to replicate the grotesque castle and the most terrifying creature ever created are. The presentation starts and Frankie, a monster that eats entire human beings, comes out of the top of the castle. He was the great leader of the fortress, but one day brave villagers invaded the place and attempted to forcibly remove the monster from the castle. The show is stirring up excitement, but Fulbert wants to go the extra mile and improvise. He orders his trapeze artists to grab one of Frankie's arms, while the other hand is handcuffed to the castle. The presenter then states that the monster was trying to fight back, but the residents tore his arm off. Frankie is scared because this wasn't part of the act and he tries to hang on, but the weight of the trapeze artists causes the arm to soon give way. Finally, Fulbert says that only the scientist who created it could restore the creature's arm using wool and a needle. But first, it's necessary to know what's inside Frankie. So, Fulbert, wearing the scientist's costume, assures Frankie that he will completely untie her in public. The boy gets scared and cries for help, but then his friend Creation crosses the circus stage to help his friend. The entire audience and circus crew are frightened and flee through the stands to see a real monster in front of them. Everything goes haywire and the castle starts to fall apart while Frankie is still shackled. The boy is able to free himself with the help of Creation, and he and the two go away with Arabella. But the entire circus begins to burn. Luckily, they find a way out and Creation takes Frankie away. But as Arabella is running away, Fulbert grabs the girl by the arm. He asks Arabella how she knows Frankie, and the girl replies that he is a kind monster who lives in the grotesque castle with other creatures. Hearing this, Fulbert becomes even more excited, for now he knows there are more monsters to bring to his show. With the audience rushing back to the village, the circus owner blocks the way with his train, saying he has an announcement to make. He says that Arabella was captured and taken to the grotesque castle, where an army of monsters lives. Then he calls the villagers to come and save her, and they all come, and they all take their torches, and they take their pitchforks, and they take their spears. Actually, Arabella is a hostage on Fulbert's train, baited by the villagers to enter the castle. The circus boss is too far gone in the head for the circus crew, but for Fulbert the monsters are essential, for with them, his circus will be the most famous in the world. As the villagers head towards the castle, Creation takes Frankie away from the village. When Frankie gets home, he apologizes for leaving, saying that he only wanted to be loved by someone. The monsters respond that they have always loved Frankie because he always treats them like his family. The boy is moved, hugs his friends, but the moment is cut short by the sound of a train, which is quickly approaching the gates of the castle. Fulbert guides the villagers towards the fortress in front of the gate, but the mechanism is triggered by the monsters, which raises the bridge and the gates. Despite this, the villagers are able to form a human bridge, which the train uses to travel through. The villagers approach closer and closer, and the monsters think that this is the end, but Frankie tells them that they should fight and embrace their monstrous nature. In a flash, the people of Grubernuben manage to get through the gates and run towards the monsters, who run into the castle. Frankie takes his friends to the cleaning room using a cart on a rope and pulley, while the villagers are hot on his heels. They manage to lose them, but Arabella's mother manages to get into the control room, and when she sees the monsters, she presses a button on the panel to kill them. Rather, the mad woman baths all the monsters at once, and they take the chance to run away once more. The group attempts to hide in the movie theater, but the villagers start to gather around them with their weapons. This appears to be the end, but Frankie has an idea and turns on the projector to play the video with the castle rules. The boy, however, plays the recording backwards, and the monsters come to understand that they should listen to their fearsome instincts rather than orders. The animals know this and start to frighten the people with their screams and grimaces, as Frankie predicted. While the chaos reigns, Fulbert attempts to clear up the situation by himself, but Arabella gets away and strikes out at Fulbert, revealing to everyone that he was responsible for all of it. The circus owner, however, manages to escape and flees through the castle until he reaches the professor's laboratory. The man is in the middle of another experiment, but is interrupted by Fulbert, who insists on keeping all of his monsters. However, Frankie and Creation appear on the roof and tied to a rope. He swings to the door and locks the guy inside. Then, he attempts to activate the machine to call up the new monster, but Fulbert interrupts him and jumps to the window. With his balloon emerging on the other side, the circus owner is about to flee. So Frankie takes hold of the lever to make the machine machine work and attempts to pull it, but it's stuck. Creation tries to help his friend by pulling the rope, but he realizes that Frankie's arm is coming apart even more. Even so, the boy orders him to do it, and using all his strength, Creation pulls the rope, causing Frankie to activate the lever. At the same moment, the machine shoots a strong beam to the operating table and a monster, which looks like a giant reptile, comes out from under the sheet. When Fulbert sees the terrible animal, he attempts to run away, but the animal is quicker and eats him up with one bite. The circus owner's plans have been fulfilled, but it's taken the arm of Frankie, and the boy goes unconscious until his body is fully mended. All the monsters come around the boy and are saddened and think he is lost forever. The professor comes by at that moment, and for the first time he cares about Frankie and his creation. The professor knew that he had not been paying them the attention that they deserved, since he was more busy creating monsters than caring for them. He asks for some thread and a needle to fix Frankie and promises to take better care of the monsters, naming each one. After all the trouble, hours later Frankie comes back from the dead, and with the professor they decide to renovate the castle. In addition, Arabella asks the villagers to apologize to the monsters, since the circus owner was the one who did it. Because of this, the professor allows all people to come to his castle and communicate with his creation. Frankie takes his camera with him, and for so long no one noticed him, now the boy knows what it feels like to be loved and have a family. With Fulbert, the professor's new monster expels him, since he was made to be a vegetarian. The madman tries to escape, but the creature swallows him again and will continue to do so until the circus owner has learned his lesson. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, leave a comment about your favorite movie, and we will make it next. Thanks for watching.